What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Citizen JV, and today we're going to be talking about Wolfenstein: The New Order. Even though I did a video on Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, which happens to be one of my favorite games in the series, but however, I want to talk about The New Order because I feel like that this game is a really good way of stepping into the shoes of BJ Blazkowicz once again, other than Wolfenstein: The Old Blood or Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Now, here's what I truly think about this game, as I previously finished it not too long ago, and I'm going through another timeline. This game has two different timelines, and you get to go through Fergus's timeline, and then you get to go through Wyatt's timeline. And the difference between the timelines of these two characters, of the different pathways that you can do, is if you go through Fergus's, you will be able to not use the combination lock, as it were, like lock picking, as it were. You're basically using wires in order to get to certain types of area or specific types of spots that you will not be able to interact generally, and that's what I really like about that. Now, however, if you go through Wyatt's timeline, what you actually end up doing is that you will be able to do the lockpicking mechanic, and that's the difference between the timeline between Wyatt and Fergus. And I think that's what's really cool about this game in terms of the two different timelines. And I felt like I needed to bring this concept in real quick at the beginning of this video, because so that way you get a entirely good context of what these timelines will do in order to not really persuade, I guess I would say. It's more on the lines of what the differences are going to be in terms of these timelines, and I think that's a good way of explaining that. Now, however, what I really want to talk about here, though, too, the New Order really pertains of what the Old Blood did. Like I previously mentioned in my Old Blood video, this game takes place after the events of Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. And what's really cool about the New Order is the fact that you are able to go to Castle Wolfenstein once again in this game, and you were able to do that in the Old Blood as well, but it did have a good strong focus on that. That's basically the strong focus when it comes to the Wolfenstein games, especially the New Order and Old Blood. The New Colossus, Wolfenstein 2, did have a little bit of that semblance in order to have that type of storytelling mechanic in terms of Castle Wolfenstein itself, and that's where it housed Death's Head in Old Blood and in Wolfenstein: The New Order, until you finally defeat him as the final boss in the New Order. So, now another thing I will mention here, though, too, what the New Order does, it still has the stronger mechanics of the gameplay style. You can still go through a certain type of level all the way through stealthily, or if you want to go happenstance, as into or juxtaposed of going all through, just battle your way through, guns a-blazing, you can do that. And what I mentioned about the Old Blood video as well is that you can also do one thing in particular, which is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a game like this with the Old Blood, with the New Order and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, is that you will have different types of perks along with a certain type of gameplay style to either if it's stealth or combat. And then when you have these unlockable perks that you get unlocked while doing the specific types of styles that you can do, you'll be able to have better health upgrades or armor upgrades, and that's where the Wolfenstein games in these newer generational ones that we have right now. I mean, obviously that these games are a lot older now from the past few years that we've had, but however, I think when it comes to these games, that they are a very, very interesting way of, yes, they are part of the same first-person shooter genre of that of Doom or Quake, from back in the day. But however, what I love about the Wolfenstein games, and I cannot harp enough about this, is that when it comes to these newer Wolfenstein games, they have the sensical of better exploration. What I mean by the exploration side, it has to do with secrets. And with the secrets within the Old Blood or the New Order or Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, it feels that nostalgia all over again. Obviously, the newer Doom games did that though too. But what I'm saying is that the newer Doom games always had a really good repertoire of more. It was a more higher ground of a run and gun shooter than anything else. I mean, yes, you can find the secrets. Yes, you can do all that alternative gameplay style, and going guns a-blazing and vice versa. Wolfenstein does have that type of exception, but what I love about Wolfenstein, it just has a good, strong implementation of some exploration involved. You can go off the beaten path and find these secrets or whatever you want to find, but you still have the overall story arc or the gameplay arc of having that emergent type of style gameplay. And that's where I think where the Wolfenstein differs from that of what the Doom games do, the newer Dooms, in terms of that type of exploration. And I love that. I think that's what's the greatest important thing to me as a gamer, and why these Wolfenstein games, I feel like that they are a much better way of, what you're doing. You don't have to be in that specific battle chessboard like from what the newer Doom games do, like Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. And that's where I feel like that were the newer Wolfenstein games, like the Old Blood, the New Order, the New Colossus. They just do things a little bit better in terms of that type of gameplay style. The gameplay style, what I mean by that is that this is an arena shooter, but it does not feel like a chessboard shooter, much like from what Doom Eternal did. I hope that you know where I'm going with this. So my bad on that. If you can chastise me either way, I really don't care. Now, I can't praise the gameplay in the newer Wolfenstein games enough. I think it's one of the best I've ever seen amongst other the newer Doom game titles like Doom Eternal or Doom 2016. But I don't know. I just think that the gunplay in Wolfenstein: The New Order, it just creates a good repertoire of gameplay mechanics. You have a shot. I don't know if you can get a double barrel shotgun. It's a little bit of an Easter egg from that of the original Doom games, and I think that's what's really cool though too, in a very unique way. And I think that's awesome. I love that so much. But however, I think when it comes to the New Order or the Old Blood or Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, I just love the gameplay style in this game. It's a little bit more organic, and I love the weapons that you get. You get the Bombachus, which is like the version of a shotgun, or you can get you get assault rifles, you get pistols, you get SMGs to a certain type of style, and I love why, and that's another reason why I love the new Wolfenstein: The New Order, and it really just does a better implementation of the gameplay mechanics and aesthetics of what these games do in order to have that type of style, and it's amazing. Now, another thing what I've noticed when it comes to the New Order as well, I think this game just really, I love it's an alternative timeline base. And what I mean by that, there's always, this is when the Nazis take over a specific type of regime in this era of the newer Wolfenstein games, and I think that's a really cool way of implementing a better type of storytelling, and I like that. I think it's a very cool, unique way of bringing something like that in a game like this, and it makes it far more different from what the other Wolfenstein games have done. There was a game called Wolfenstein. I believe that game came out in 2008 or 2009, and that was a very different type of Wolfenstein game, but however, it still felt like a Wolfenstein game. That had a different type of mechanic to where it's like you were able to travel between a different type of world, which is like a physical world or like a spectral world, to sort of say, much like it might be similar to that of Soul Reaver, because you have the material realm and the spectral realm. That's what it kind of played like. But another thing what I love about the New Order as well, though, I think this game is something very different and unique from what it does, and how it really wants to play it in a certain way, and I'll just love that. I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen in a Wolfenstein game like this before. And it's very, very good. Like I said, I can't praise this game enough to where the gameplay is. I believe that's where one of the crux is. Now, another thing I would really like to touch base here real quick, too, is I really want to say I think the New Order, it is a little rough in the beginning of the game. But it eventually branches off and gets a lot better. It really gets a lot better because you have much better utilization in terms of combat. And as you see here, I recently, when I played this last night, or just a while ago, however, like I said, with the perks, I unlocked a perk called Vaporize, and what that did, it basically increased, I believe it either increased my health or my armor. So that's really cool. Now, one thing I would really like to say is I really love the fact of what this game does. I really like the way how it just what's that word? It really likes this circumvents itself to a way how it connects from the old blood to the New Order, and then Wolfenstein to the new Colossus. And I think I love the way how the story just really envelops itself and how it creates a whole new, entire different type of world. And what I will say is that I really praise Machine Games. I think Machine Games did a really fantastic job of making these newer Wolfenstein games and bringing back some of that nostalgia factor. And I think that's another thing what I love about these games, much like the newer Doom games that we've had in the previous years as well. And I think I always love it when there's I always love that to where there's going to be a nostalgia factor to it. And it's amazing. All I can say is that, do I highly recommend playing this game? I do. I do highly recommend playing this series. There is another game, Wolfenstein Young Blood, which takes place after the events of Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. And I did play a little bit of that. But however, I really don't want to talk about that game because I'm not sure if I want to make a video on that. We'll see. But point being, I still think that the New Order just does something. It feels great. The gunplay feels great. It's fluid, and I love its art design. I think it's one of the best I've seen, especially in a Wolfenstein game like this. Obviously, you really can't compare it. You can't compare it to Wolfenstein 3D because with Wolfenstein 3D, however, that was a very old school game. It had really old school graphics. It was other than it being a first person shooter with 3D pixelated graphics and everything, because that's why it was such an old school game. And I think as far as I know, or as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Wolfenstein the Old Blood, or Wolfenstein the New Order, or Wolfenstein 2 the new Colossus, you can instantly tell of how far this franchise or this series has come in terms of its graphical standpoint and its fidelity, and the way how they just were able to manipulate really cool infrastructures and structures alike, from the outside world or the inside structures as well. And that's another thing I really like about these games in general, other than from Wolfenstein the New Order. And I think it's great. I think it's, like I said, it's definitely one of the best adaptation Wolfenstein games I've ever played, other than from, like the older school titles back in that time. And what I will say is that, like I said, I love the art style. I love the gun. I love the gameplay of everything of what this whole entire game does, of its own aesthetic, and it does it greatly. And another thing I would really like to add here, though, too, is one of my greatest things about this game, The New Order, is the fact that it's not just because of like I said, of what I previously mentioned. I intend to repeat myself, so I'm trying not to do that as much as I can. But I love the aesthetic of what the Castle Wolfenstein brings. It's the fact of how you infiltrate. You go through certain types of areas of Castle Wolfenstein. You can go through you can go through a tomb, or you can And then, but however, it's like when you find secrets, the secrets, that's another thing I would like to mention here, though, too, is that the secrets always end up providing that old school style formula and that nostalgia factor. And it's great. I love the fact that they brought something like that back to this type of game. And I think it's really utterly important because especially when it came to the older school Wolfenstein games, much like Wolfenstein 3D, there's always secrets. You know, the original Doom games did that as well. And I think that's another reason why I think Wolfenstein, the New Order, or the Old Blood, or the New Colossus, and it's fantastic of, like I said, of how far these games have come. And I'm really kind of curious what they're going to be doing for Wolfenstein 3, if it ever ends up coming out. Because I know that Bethesda is working on Starfield, and as far as I know, that they will eventually be working on Elder Scrolls 6 after Starfield releases. Like I said, we don't know for sure if and when that's going to be happening, but that's definitely a couple of years off, no doubt. So what I would really like to close here is, like I said, do I highly recommend this game? Absolutely. Like I said, I love this series. I love the Old Blood. I love the New Order. I love the New Colossus. But if I had to choose between the Old Blood, the New Order, and the New Colossus, I would definitely choose Old Blood and the New Order. I did, however, I did like quite a bit of Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, but however, it felt like it was not as good as I wanted it to be from the New Order. That's all I can say about that. But anyways, too much further ado, this is Citizen JV. Thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. But if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. And I hope all you guys and gals have a good rest of your evening. Peace.